everybody to Maintain Monday. I'm your host, Cassandra Ferguson.
And I'm your host, Placida Braswell.
We're excited about this topic, redemption. And we hope that you guys will take this moment to share, because you are about to hear some powerful testimonies, as well as some men that are well capable of giving you some wisdom on the Reform Act. So we are excited. We want you now to go and share. We want you to invite people in. We want you to sit back. We want you to take notes. And we just want to thank you for joining us. What do you say about this topic, Clash of Redemption?
So funny as it is, when we talked about the topic, and as I posted on social media, I posted Bob Marley's song, Redemption, right? Because that's what redemption makes me think of, is that we all have like a right to be redeemed in our situations on an everyday basis. You know, if you've ever been through anything hard, let's just say financially, and then, you know, you're down, but then when you get back up, there's something about that second time when you get up, how you feel redeemed and how you know you've learned, you've changed, you've grown, things have happened. So that's what I think about when I think about the word redemption. And of course,
and when I think about the word redemption, it lets me know that this is not the end of your story.
That's right.
Right. It lets me know that I may have started one way, but God had another plan.
That's right.
It may look like this is how it's going to turn out, but we all know that God is the author and the finisher of our faith. And we all know that he that began the good work in us will complete it. So I'm excited, Placida. I love this topic because most importantly, I hope it encourage our viewers to realize that God can use you. He can still use you.
Absolutely. Yeah, I was, you know, if you look behind me, there's one of my life scriptures, and it says, "For I know the plans that I have for you, declares the Lord. Plans to prosper you and not to harm you. Plans to give you a future and a hope and a future." And that is the story of redemption. Because when we are in our space, it feels like we're there by ourselves, but there's help available. And some of the folks on the line are going to demonstrate that help in the very thing that they do on a daily basis. They help others to be redeemed in their situations.
And can I say this, Placida, man, you are a product of redemption.
Come on, tell the truth. Absolutely.
Look, and it says, "Let the redeemed of the Lord,
say so." Come on.
We are redeemed of the Lord. So we just, again, we pray that this broadcast will be encouraging to our viewers. We pray that you share this broadcast, because we got some powerful, powerful men that are going to give some strong testimonies about where they were and where they are now. So let's begin.
Absolutely.
Please welcome Casey and John, a couple from Maryland, along with Ron, a truck driver. All three were stranded on I-95, but thanks to their humanity, they fed hundreds of hungry people.
Monday morning, we got up that morning and it already started snowing, so we kind of just skipped breakfast and decided to get on the road. And we're just hoping to get past the storm and get some food later. We quickly learned that would not be the case. It took us about 6 hours to get south of DC, which is normally about an hour and a half drive. And then probably like 8 or 9 hours into the drive, we came to a stop around Quantico.
Yeah, it was about 8 p.m. when we finally stopped moving.
Wow. And Ron, you were also headed to Maryland, right?
Yes, I had left Maryland at 9 a.m., headed to Norfolk, Virginia. And a trip that takes usually 4 hours, 4.5 hours to get there ended up taking 36 hours. As myself, I didn't have nothing to eat that morning either. I was going to stop on the way down.
Yeah.
I usually don't drive in the snow. My wife mentioned that to me, but I told her I felt peace, so I headed on out.
What was it like?
It got surreal when we saw like abandoned cars, people walking to look for help. People were very upset, but we were so hungry. That's all I remember, was being so starving the entire time.
Well, Ron, you must have been second guessing that whole, like, usually I don't like to drive in winter circumstances.
Yes. It was kind of eerie at first, because it got real quiet. I mean, real quiet out there. You can hear a pin drop. And so I immediately got in the back, prayed some more was something I can do to help. And next thing you know, here we are. An hour went past, 2 hours went past, 3 hours went past, and next thing you know, it's daylight, and we're getting texts on our phones stating that help is on the way, but help never came.
Casey, fortunately, you all made it through the night. So when did you meet Ron?
Yeah, so when the sun rose, it had been about 37 hours to that point since we were last eating, and we were starving, and I had seen the Smith Baking Company truck ahead of us. And John actually made a joke to me about how nice it would be just to have even a loaf of bread at that point of time. And I kind of hit me that maybe there might be bread on that truck. Yeah, I saw it was a Schmidt Bed Baking Company truck, and I just called the customer service line, and my mom did as well. She was so worried about us. And about 20 minutes later, we got a call back from Chuck, and he was absolutely incredible, just the kindest man in the entire world. And he told me to give the phone to Ron, or the truck driver. He didn't know who it was, but give the phone to the truck driver.
So what were you thinking at that point?
Well, I was in the back, like I said, praying, and I finally got up to the front seat. And I seen this lady walking on the ice with a cell phone in her hand, trying to hold her balance. And I'm saying, I wonder where she going. She can't go nowhere. So she comes to my door and she stops. So I rolled the window down thinking she needs some assistance. She said, I'm talking to Chuck from Smith Bakery. He would like to talk to you. So she handed me the phone. I introduced myself. He introduced himself. He asked me if I had a problem, open up my truck, handing out bread. And I said, well, Chuck, this is an answered prayer, because I was praying. What could I do to help the people? Because I was getting hungry myself. And I got out, opened up the back of my trailer. John took some. Casey took some. John went south. Casey went north. And I went all around. The cars in front of me, the trucks in front of me. But this one particular lady, she looked frightened. She was like scared. She said she hasn't heard from her family. Her phone was dead. And so I handed her the bread, and then I mentioned to her, too bad I don't have no fish, so I can give you some fish. You have fish and bread like the biblical days. She laughed. She was happy. We just took it from there.
Well, Ron, I understand the governor of Maryland is honoring you all this week. So what are you taking away from this?
Redemption.
Oh, my
Redemption.
God.
I had a troubled past, and how it's all coming to full circle, and where it allows me to be honored. So I feel that my labor has not been in vain. Blessed to be a blessing. Thank you.
Wow.
Wow.
What an incredible story. Not only of servanthood, but how God will use you in the right place at the right time to be a blessing. And we do not want to delay this. We want to bring Ron Hill on. Ron, welcome.
Blessings. How are you?
Welcome.
Thank you.
You know what I loved about your presence? When I saw you, I saw the picture of you being honored by the governor ahead of time. But just now, when I saw you, you are so careful to give honor and glory to God in everything that you do, and your presence does. Like just the way you sat, the way you spoke. Thank you for using your platform to give honor to God.
Amen.
Yes, Ron. And we also want to bring Will on, who's also going to share his story with us as well. But hi, Will. How are you?
Good morning. I'm sorry. Good afternoon.
Yeah, good afternoon.
Right?
So we're going to start with you first, Ron. You used the word redemption. You used that word. And when I heard you use that word, actually it struck something in me. Can you tell us about that word redemption?
Word redemption means to me to be restored. I was brought up in a decent family, well-to-do family. And life took different turns. Went to the military for 10 years. Worked in the police department for a few years. And I got stuck. Came back to Maryland, and my life took a spiral. Drugs, alcohol, prison. Was saved the whole time, but was fighting. And in and out of jail, saying, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. I'm going to stop getting high. I'm going to stop drinking, which I did stop drinking for like 20-something years. 28 years I've been clean from alcohol, 15 from drugs. And it just reminds me that God can take anything you're messing making a ministry, a message. And I feel that I've been redeemed. Going to the governor of New Jersey, asking for a pardon, then years later, getting a citation from the state of Maryland governor. That means a lot to me. And it just lets me know that there's a way out. And the way out is Jesus Christ. He said, if I be lifted up, I'll draw all men unto me. So that's my calling, to speak about the Lord and draw all men unto him. It's not about Ronald Hill. It's about God getting the praise, and I give him all the glory and honor. That's all I can say. You know, and I'm going to keep on doing it, you know.
Wow.
That's
And
how
Ron,
I feel.
look at the setup. Look at the setup, because you know so many people have that a testimony and a witness of how God has changed their life. But look at the setup and look how God set it up so you can tell the world, the entire world, because that video went viral. I don't know if people remembered. It was, I think it was, how many, 3 weeks ago, Ron?
Yeah, January 3rd. I just come back off of vacation.
Real bad snowstorm on 95. People were stuck on the highway for 16 to 21 hours.
Yes.
Can you imagine being stuck for 16 to 21 hours and here comes Ron, an answer to their prayer. Like, what am I going to eat? I heard that, you know, some babies were on the highway. Yes. Families were on the highway. And all of a sudden, not only did God use you as a beacon of light, but he literally puts you in the posture now that the world can hear about your redemption story.
Absolutely. The other thing about that is how he chooses, who he chooses, and how he chooses. And because a lot of times we count ourselves out. I bet you didn't get on that road that morning thinking, I'm going to be the one that God uses to do this major thing that is going to go viral. And so that is a message really to all of us. Like, you don't, it's not about your bank account. It's not about your history. It's about what you allow God to do through your life. And when you listen, like you said, you were in the back praying.
Weeping. I mean, tears rolling down my eyes. Oh, Shama, rolling down my eyes. And I just couldn't understand why. And now I knew why when this happened. I understand why.
We got to be available.
Yes.
We got to be ready for the call when it comes. Because it might not look, I mean, giving out bread on the highway, let's be honest, that don't sound like what it is right now.
You know,
that, you know, what it became, because in our hands, you know, it might be nothing, but in God's hands, it's everything. So thank you for your service, sir.
And so many young people need to hear this, right? And I'm going to be honest with you. My brother is serving time in prison now, okay? He was supposed to get life. We prayed, and they reduced his sentence from life till about 4 years. So we know God got a plan for him when he comes out. We know. So God is a redeeming God.
Yes, he is.
He's a redeeming God. It doesn't matter what man says. So many people need to hear this message. One thing is, you could give up on me, you could give up on yourself, but don't give up on God.
That's
so
right.
Will, we want to bring you into this redemption conversation. We know that you also got a message. Now, Will, I want you to tell everybody what you're doing with this new semi-pro football team. Of course, the Baltimore Lightning. But I also want you to tell people why you're doing it.
Well, good afternoon. I hope everybody can hear me okay. Mm-hmm. You know, we started, and the Baltimore Lightning is a new pro team in the Baltimore area. And I say pro, and our guys, they're not the Ravens. You know, they don't make Ravens money. But we use it as a vehicle to really get a lot of these young men off the street. You know, it was that was paramount to everything. Now, of course, we do the business side, but we have a social responsibility as stewards of our young Black men. And I say that to all the men that are my age. I say that to Ronald. I say that to all that's us, right? We have a responsibility. Yes. And so my portion of that responsibility was to recruit other men of my genre in age range and say, how do we fix the problem in a city like Baltimore? How do we keep guys off the street? And how do we get guys to do something different? And the thing is that they only will do something different if they're exposed to something different. But in order to get them, we had to give them something that they enjoyed, something they liked, something that they thought they were good at, and something that they were familiar with. And that was football. So that was the initial intent behind it. Then it became a different kind of entity. It became a pro entity. It became this. And, 60 to 100 young men later, over the last 19 months, we've had 100 young men that most, when people look at a football team, they look and they see just guys running up and down the field. They think these guys graduated from college and where these guys came from and all of that. Well, I would probably say about 40 or 50% of my team were guys that we got off the streets in Baltimore. There's a percentage of the guys that we got that went to college. There's some that we got a couple of guys that did play in the NFL. We had one guy that did get drafted. But the bulk of the guys actually are the same guys that you walk past in the supermarket or that stand outside on the corner in some of the worst neighborhoods in Baltimore, right? And so over the last 2 years, none of these young men have been in a shooting. None of them have shot anybody. None of them have gone to jail. 15 of them have gone to college. Another whole set of 15 of them have gone to NFL camps. And the rest of them are, they're coaches for youth teams, all of those things. So when we talk about redemption, redemption has a trickle-down effect. And we have a program that's called Next Man Up. It is 1,000 young athletes at 5 different programs, and each of those programs have 200 children, right? They have 200 children. And in those 200 children, these are the Pop Warner teams that y'all see all over the city, and when we see those kids that's playing at the park or playing at a field in your neighborhood, these are the kids that we sponsor. These are these kids. So we have 1,000 of them this year. And graciously, we've been part of the Fellowship of Christian Athletes. We did a partnership with them. We have a partnership with Baltimore City Recreation and Parks to give 1,500 tickets per game to our games to the young people. But a lot of our guys they're coaching these kids now. These were the same kids that they looked up to in a negative way in the neighborhood. Now they look at them as, hey, you're the guy that used to do X, Y, and Z. Now you're playing football. You're coaching football. You're doing this. So it's a trickle down effect of what we see, what they see, in not only through us, but also through the same guys. Now they look up to them in a different way. They're not looking up to them and saying, I want to be a drug dealer just like you.
That's right. Come on.
They're not saying I want to be a drug dealer. They said I want to play football just like you. I want to do this.
I'm sorry, I don't want to interrupt you, but I want you, because it's so very important to know that you are an example of everyone doing their part. Like, look at what you have been able to do based on a vision, a mission. And what you described, you did not mention this particular scripture, but Cassandra and I often go to this scripture. It's Titus 2. You were sure to point out that the older men are to be temperate, dignified, sensible, sound in faith, in love, in steadfastness, Christ-like in character. That is Titus 2:2, and that is in the Amplified version. But that's where you began. Like, I have a responsibility, and I'm going to go get my brothers. We got to do something. And how many years later, you are talking about some of them have gone to college. Some of them have gone to NFL camps. Some are coaches. And these 1,000 or so lives of these young people have been impacted in a real tangible way. When people talk about the city of Baltimore, we don't often get that story.
Right. It is the most beautiful and the most tragic thing at the same time, right? Because I only have 60 spots. I wish I had 100 or 500, because and there are other things that we have to do. And this is just as stewards of our communities, whether you're a man, woman, child, as stewards of our communities, there are things that we could do. I run a CDC in Park Heights. I've run the CDC in Park Heights for the last 12 years, and I'm 13 years. And the things that I know that there are 12,000 young people in just my community, 12,000, right? Out of 33,000, most of them are young people. And we have to make sure that we are doing every single thing that we can. If we got vacant houses in our communities, then guess what? We got a built-in workforce, because we can train those very same people to get rid of that. And it's tragic what I saw, what we all saw with the firefighters that were killed, but that was because of we allowed that neglect to be in our neighborhood. Right? So people can only do, and my grandmother told me this a long time ago, people only do what you allow them to do. And so I don't care if they're an elected official. I don't care if they're from elected officials to the drug dealer on the corner to the guy that owns a liquor store. We allow what goes on in our neighborhood. So until we stop allowing it, it will continue to happen.
Well, I have a question. I have a question for you. And this is going to go back to your why. We heard about the programs you're doing. We heard about the young men that want to be a part. But why is it that why are you so passionate about doing this?
Because I remember when I was 15, 16, 17, and I always remind people, I say, I didn't always wear suits. That's one of the things I always say. I say I didn't always wear suits. And I think that a lot of me and probably a lot of my peers were somewhat responsible for the demise of this city, whether it was through whatever activity we conducted at the time. I think that we were responsible to some extent. And so in order for us to, and properly titled show for the day, Redemption, right? It was important that we gave this back the way that we do. And I can name a few of the guys I count, so I'm not going to name them on the air. But I mean, I know that some of these guys that are giving back in the neighborhoods, that are doing this work in communities, are doing it because, and it's not necessarily guilt, it's responsibility. It's that we have a responsibility. And so some of us have taken that responsibility and said, this is why we have to do this, because the next group of young men, and if you'll just oblige me for 1 second, because I really want to give people a dig into where this comes from, right? So the young men that are, that were growing up in the 80s and 90s, and you began to see a deterioration of the family structure. The fabric of our communities began to deteriorate. And then in the 90s, it got worse. And in 2000s, it got worse. Well, what I always tell people is that these are their children. What you see out in the street right now that's happening in the streets in cities like Baltimore, is that these are their children. These are the children of the demise that happened in the 90s. These are the children of the 150,000 Black men that were locked up during the maladministration. These are their children, and this is what we're seeing play out in the streets heavily, and so while we can go out and grab a few, there are tens of thousands that we're not even touching. And so that's why it's incumbent upon us to do our part. This is a part of the why, but the why also becomes that I also have young Black men as sons. I have young Black men that are my nephews, my children, and so forth. And I say this as I sit here, in Atlanta, just having, my godson was just murdered Friday. So this is a part of the why, because we get back what we invest. Right. And the return on our investment is the return on our investment has to be equitable, right? Because a lot of times we're not making those deposits, but we want to stick the card in the ATM machine.
Wow. Ronald, first of all, yes, so sorry for your loss. So very sorry. It's heartbreaking to see, our men die in these streets. But when it touches home, it touches different. So we just want to pause to say sorry, and just to let you know our prayers are with you and your family. I saw some responses in Ronald at the bottom, and I just wanted to hear, because you're his brother. You can say what I can't say. So what are your thoughts right now, Ron?
Listening to Will, it means a lot. Park Heights was my stomping ground. And when he said that, if I'm not sure, I've been out when I was in Park Heights area about 14 years. And I'm pretty sure that y'all played over in the Woodland Avenue area.
Yep. Ricetown and Woodland, and then Toronto, all of that. Yep.
I remember you. I used to come watch y'all. And I used to always say to one of my buddies, I said, man, whoever's doing it's doing a good idea. Because I'm from the county, but I came in the city to do whatever I did. And it was just a different atmosphere. I would go to the county to get replenished, as you would say, to rest. But I would come in the city and stay for weeks at a time. And I just enjoyed seeing what you were doing out there. And it's like in Harford County now. I live in Elkin, Maryland, and you see it. The drugs have taken over the young generation, and they are our tomorrow. And one of my goals is to help guys coming out of prison, off of drugs, veterans, to get CDLs, to get them grants to go get air conditioned heating, to get jobs. And I'm working on my 501(c)(3) as we speak. It's pending now. And I'm just praying that God will send me the resource to let my light see what God did in my life. We'll be able to do in someone else's life. So just keep on doing what you're doing, Will. That's awesome.
Can I respond to my brother
Absolutely.
real quick? So here's the thing. Here's the thing, though, Ronald. I have a 501(c)(3), and for your programming, until you get that 501(c)(3), I'll let you use our status and run this program and do what you need to do. Like we'll have a conversation offline, but that's something that we need to make happen because I believe in the mission, I believe in the mind, I believe in the man. So I agree that the only way that any of this stops and any of this moves is that we have to work together. And I even though I've never met you, right? What you just said is you hope God give you the resource, and I got one right here, and you got
come on. So that's what.
Excuse me for a minute. I missed everything he said. I lost contact.
See.
You want me to say it again?
He's paused. Yeah.
So, you said your 501(c)(3) is pending, and one of the resources that I want to bring to you is I want to allow you to use our nonprofit status with the New Park Heights Community Development Corporation. Until your 501(c)(3) comes through, you can use our status, and I'll send you the fiscal agent letter, all of that stuff. You can get that in a day. It's a one-page letter, and you can just get right to work. And whatever help you need, we'll help. We'll be there.
Amen. Thank you.
And that's the easy stuff that a lot of us don't do.
Redemption. See what we think is, and you said it just now, Will. You said that's the easy stuff that what? Finish that statement.
A lot of us don't do. There's a lot of us. It's the easy.
Don't help one another.
We don't. And then relationship.
They say what's easy to do is easy not to do.
That's good. What's easy to do is easy not to do. Relationship is the currency of this generation. We have to understand that it's not all about our names being on the marquee. It's about what are we going to do and how are we going to connect and collaborate, because we need each other. So that is a beautiful example. Thank you, Will, for your heart, period. Like, thank you for you. Thank you for you. Thank you, Ron, for you. As
iron sharpens iron. That's it. And you know what? And it's almost like when you have the power, thank you, Denny, powerful. When you have the power to do, when you have the capacity to do, when you have the means to do, this is where you're going to see I would say this is where we're going to see such an amazing movement of God in collaboration in our circle. Because you have something I need, I have something you need. And look what God even did today. The platform that was provided for you guys to come together. So I want you guys, we got some attorneys that are coming on next to talk about the Prison Reform Act. But I want you guys to tell us before you can stay with us, but I want you to tell us because you talked about mentorship. We talked about Titus 2. Tell us how important mentorship is for today's generation.
Myself is needed, as I'm 60 years old and I have a mentor as we speak. One of my bishops mentors me. He has a ministry in Elk Ridge, Maryland, and we have food giveaways. Mm-hmm. We've talked about it. I've been doing it with him for years, but he said it's time for you to step out. I gave you the directions, and you take what's going to happen. He gave me a word on a Friday, and it came to pass on that Saturday. You're going to be at the right place at the right time. Wow. The world's going to know your name. And 3 days later, me getting stuck in a snowstorm, the world knew my name. So I can't take it for granted.
No.
I can't take it for granted. So now it just feels my time to give back. And that's what my plan is to give back. Like I said, I own my own trucking business. It's one truck, but it's done me well. This truck has done me well. This business has done me well. You know, this is the longest I've ever been on a job. I was in the military for 10 years, but I've been driving the truck for 14 years. So it can be done.
Yeah.
And trust and believe it can be done.
Yes. Thank you, Ronald.
Well,
mentorship.
So,
and also tell people how to get in contact with you for Baltimore Lightning and what they can do to help you.
Will do. So I've always said that mentorship it comes in many forms, right? And a lot of people don't understand what mentorship is. A lot of times talking to somebody is mentoring them, you know. But as it relates to what we do for a lot of the young men in our program, I tell them, I said, it's not about, I said, you just break the word down. You know, this is about mentoring through our communities. This is about mentoring the minds of our young people. This is about mentoring into the lives and sowing into the lives of our young people. So you break the word down and it's men that are touring into, I know touring is spelled different. I don't want people to think I don't know that, but I know it's spelled different. But it's the goal and the mission and the overall, it's about being consistent. Mentoring is about being consistent. Mentoring is about implementation and not just about deliberation. Mentoring is all of those things. So until you become, being a mentor is a job. And I think people should get a 1099 for just being a mentor, whether they get paid for it or not. Usually it's work.
Right.
You know, it's work. And I think that there's a spirituality to being a mentor. There's a certain level of spirituality. It takes that to give of oneself to pour into other people. So it takes a lot to do that. But I'm not going to take up too much time. But I really appreciate you all, Cassandra and Placido. I really appreciate you all for having us on, having me on. And if people want to get in touch with the Baltimore Lightning, you can reach us on all of our social media platforms, on Facebook, on Instagram, and I don't know if it's stuff the young people got, Snap something. But they can also go to our website, BaltimoreLightning.com, and just reach out to us. Our number is 301-971-BOAT, like a lightning bolt. 301-971-BOAT. You can reach us, get in touch with us, come out and support. Come out to the games. We, our games will starting the next few months. You go there, you can see our schedule. And for those of y'all that can't afford to go to a Ravens game, you can always afford to come see the Baltimore Lightning.
And I'm gonna say one bigger. I'm gonna say, there's an investor out there listening to this that can give you the additional 60 spots to grow your program. So I'm saying connect with Will Hanna if you believe in his mission and his vision and you want to sow. I'm sure he as you can see, he's responsible with that.
You're right.
Thank you.
And we will definitely be connecting you, Will, and Ron together. So this was definitely a divine connection. And we want to thank you both for joining us and sharing your story. And all I can say is eyes have not seen and ears have not heard. Neither has it entered into the heart of man what God has prepared for you both. And thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
So the next half of this show is actually, we're going to be talking about the Prison Reform Act, in which we do have two very, very powerful attorneys that are going to be with us. But we have this short video we want you to see.
I didn't have to do this, right? I could have just continued to keep doing what I was doing and hope that it never came out.
Larry Miller led Michael Jordan's best-known brand.
For us, it was like, okay, let's try and create a brand that is the Michael Jordan of brands.
That's him right behind Jordan in 2005 on 60 Minutes.
So it's not just, here's my name, use it.
Oh, no. No, I do have a sense, I like control.
Making it all the more shocking that while the pair shared courtside seats, for decades Miller didn't share his darkest secret.
It's like not just what happens on the court.
How his own story started in a far different court.
Fortunate for me, it never came out.
Arrested at age 12 and in a gang by 13, in 1965 at this West Philadelphia intersection, Miller's young life came to a crossroads.
I had a gun and we just decided we were going to go look for somebody. One of my gang members had been killed. I was angry, drunk, and crazy. Mr. White just happened to be at the wrong place at the wrong time.
Miller, just 16 at the time, shot and killed 18-year-old David White. White left behind an 8-month-old son and a daughter who wasn't born yet.
It was totally senseless. There was nothing that he did to cause this.
Did you ever even fathom that there was a possibility that you could do something like that?
No, I didn't. There was always this voice in the back of my head saying, you know, you shouldn't be doing this. And the thing is, I just wouldn't listen to it.
Quickly arrested, at this youth prison, Miller earned his GED.
I gave the valedictorian speech at the high school graduation inside the penitentiary. I remember my closing line, it was, let's not serve time, let's let time serve us.
Miller served fewer than 5 years for murder. By age 20, he was already out.
Got out, knocked around, got pulled back into street stuff.
Sent back to prison for a series of stick-ups. Here, Miller again saw education as the key to his release.
You could actually take college classes inside the jail. It was because of that program that I was able to really change my life. The crazy thing is I've been out now for 40 years and there are still people there that were there when I was there.
Which could have been you.
Which could have absolutely been me.
Instead, Miller earned an accounting degree from Temple University. Then, up for a significant corporate job, he made the fateful decision to divulge his past.
He said, and I had an offer here already to give you, but I can't give it to you now. And at that point, I decided that I wasn't going to share this anymore. I wasn't going to lie, and I never did.
Miller landed jobs at Campbell Soup, Janssen Swimwear, and then Nike. But in the book, he writes, the secret's malignant grip on my life had grown more toxic. Dark dreams fueled paranoia during the day, which made the next night's dreams even darker.
Nightmares, migraines. There were a couple times I ended up having to go to the ER because I was holding all of this angst and fear.
Miller's oldest daughter and co-author, Layla Lacey, here visiting him in prison, said it took over 12 years to convince her father to come forward.
How do you think your dad handled the secret all this time?
It's funny, until we started writing, I didn't know about the migraines. I didn't know about the nightmares. I didn't know how he was struggling.
And Lacey also struggled learning the details of her father's crimes.
I saw them as a mother of a black boy, and it was painful. But it helped me to come into an understanding of we all deserve a second chance. Now there's no one that I meet ever that I think is unredeemable.
And on his own path to redemption, Miller knew whom to call.
I remember telling Michael, and he said, I agree with your daughter. You need to tell this story.
Everybody deserves a second chance.
She said there's nobody. Sorry, go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
I was saying, yeah, she said there's nobody that I meet. That left a mark. There's nobody that I meet that I don't believe deserves a second chance. Wow.
Wow. And even as we look at Ephesians 1, verse 7, in him, he have redemption through his blood, the forgiveness of our wrongdoings, according to the riches of his grace, God's grace. So we're going to bring two attorneys on. We're going to talk a little bit about the Prison Reform Act. And we have with us Attorney Roland and Attorney Adam. Thank you both for joining us. And I just want to, you guys have been sitting, let's just say in the back room, and you've heard the stories of our previous guests. What do you think about those stories?
In reference to Mr. Hanna, he's spot on. I think he's doing absolutely the right thing. When he talked about how, the parents of today are the people that grew up in the 1980s, that grew up in the 1990s. I mean, I got a clear picture of what the 80s and the 90s looked like. He's spot on with that assessment. He had talked about, the idea of when he said that a 1099 for mentorship, I had all types of wheels spinning in my head in reference to how something like that would work and how beneficial that would be. So, I would love to speak with Mr. Hanna again sometime in the future. Mr. Hill, when he talked about pardons and how those things come into it, that's something that we do at Cohen Harris. That particular thing, that's not an easy process. And so to hear that he's been granted not just one, but 2 pardons, that's amazing. So, and then, hearing the story that we just heard, I guess it was about Mr. Miller. That one really hit home because our practice handles a significant number of juvenile offenses. I've represented juveniles charged with murder a number of times. And I've actually had some juvenile clients that I've represented get murdered. And so I completely understand. It's like it was almost like a movie playing in my head when he was describing the events and how it turned into the juvenile detention and then ultimately into prison and things like that. And it's a story that's so familiar. And I just wish that same outcome could be the same outcome that I see for all of the juveniles. And unfortunately, it's not the case a lot of the times. So I found each one of the speakers and the presentations to be highly inspirational.
Well, awesome. Thank you, sir. Attorney Adam, did you want to add to that?
Yeah, for me, I kind of had a different approach. I'm probably one of the youngest people here. I think I would be one of those children of that same generation that kind of bore the results of the 80s and 90s and the war on drugs and things of that nature. And so as a person who is kind of in between, I am both mentee and mentor at one time. I have been fortunate to be able to kind of arise to this position and be able to be an attorney and working with the client base that obviously bears the brunt end of all of the things that are being discussed right now. And to hear stories of people being able to kind of just turn the corner and not be a product of their circumstances or a product of their environment and to kind of right their own ship while also doing the most important thing, which is to reach that hand backwards and pull somebody up with you. It's kind of phenomenal to hear. One of the things that was most salient for me was the relationship and the focus on the children, right? The fact that, when we're looking at violence in Baltimore City or violence in our nation and repeat offenders and things of that nature, we're talking about young people. people 14, 15, 16 years old who are, caught up in the criminal justice system and have to make a set of adult decisions and perhaps aren't able to even, recognize the true, reality of what they're embarking upon, and that early intervention, especially through something like football, which as a person who played myself, I can attest, helped to keep me away from certain things. I got practice. I can't, just hang around with you guys. I can't go do these things. I have bigger goals. I would like to play college ball. I would like to go to the NFL. Just the idea of that alone was enough to kind of keep me on the right path, so to speak. And so to see, folks in the community just helping hundreds of kids is just very, very powerful. And to see someone being kind of thrust into the spotlight, maybe not even knowing that that was going to be their story. And it's just amazing to see how we're able to parlay these things and really continue this heavy work, which is, ongoing as we speak.
So you guys talked about, I know we didn't have the proper introduction, and I do want to take a step back to just kind of introduce our viewers to you and what you do on a daily basis in the firm that you work for. Could you do that?
My name is Roland Harris. I'm a senior partner at the law office of Cohen Harris. I've been a practicing attorney for about 15 years. We practice various areas of the law, a lot of criminal defense, family law. In addition, we do civil, which is personal injury, police misconduct cases, malpractice cases, and things of the sort. And to be honest with you, I love my team to death.
So my name is Adam Sharif. I am one of the associate attorneys here at Cohen and Harris. I practice primarily in the civil division. I've been a practicing attorney now for 3 years. So I'm the new kid on the block, if so to speak. But one of the things that's been helpful, I kind of set out to become an attorney thinking that I wanted to be a state's attorney, and then I kind of shifted gears and wanted to be a public defender, a background that Roland shares. And now I get to work with that same client base, but also addressing kind of the unspoken about issues, right? We talk about jail, we talk about pretrial detention, we talk about parole and probation, but those same client bases also have a myriad of issues that are related to economics, housing instability, work instability. And so to be able to do things on the civil side, it allows us to serve that same client base in a more holistic way than just your liberty interest. So I'm glad to be here. It's definitely fulfilling work, and I thank you for the opportunity to be with you guys today.
Thank you for being here. Thank you so much for being here. What I love about our guests today, Cassandra, is that they represent a diversity of what is happening. Like there's real life, not just the guests that we have, but also in the videos that have been shared. These are people's real lives. And sometimes when we see things on the screen, right, the media, the news report, we disconnect from it in a way. We numb from it. And you guys are in the work. You are dealing with the families that have fallen apart, or someone is no longer with us, and you're trying to put the pieces back together. And that's real work. And as Attorney Adam has just said, there's a diversity of needs. And so this is, yes, sure, the legal issue is going on, but how about the fact that they don't have a place to live? And so I just thought, starting there, like how do you navigate all of that in this redemption story? Like when you have a client that comes to you, and of course the goal is to be redeemed in that situation, but I think of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, if you're familiar. There are things that can prevent that from happening, and they're real things. The difference from getting representation from someone like you or having to use a public defender.
Yeah, one of the things that I can say that, in interacting with my particular clients, we got to first address the mindset, right? You got to first believe that, we can get a good outcome here, right? And depending on how you approach the situation can, in many respects, dictate the outcome, right? So having that hope that you can, get through whatever traumatic situation. Yes, you perhaps lost your loved one under some bad circumstances, and you want somebody to be responsible, but we got to be able to kind of shift the focus and address that mindset. Because I can say for me, having uncles, brothers, close friends, all involved with the criminal justice system. My uncle is currently doing life right now. And the reality of it all is that it's hard to be what you can't see. And so when I'm talking to kids and they're like, man, you know, I went to school with you. It's great that you're doing what you're doing right now. And I'm saying, you can do the same thing. Nah, man, you was smarter. You was this or you was that. And it's kind of a hopelessness that is kind of, you know, bred into some of us as young people, and kind of shedding that mindset and recognizing that you can, you know, transition where you currently are and do something better is kind of the first and foremost piece when I'm dealing with my clients. Because again, while I may only be able to help you with one particular issue, if we start to address these things in an appropriate way, things can build on each other, right? And just as bad as things can go, things can improve just as quickly. And we kind of have the control of that. And so we got to start up here and then move from there.
That's great.
And especially in dealing with, you know, in criminal cases, especially, you end up in situations where you really have to listen, because I think a lot of people are not ready to ask for help, and they don't know what kind of help that they necessarily need. So you need to listen to the whole thing and kind of get the whole story about it first, because you can't come into it with a judgment. You know, person may be satisfied with their housing, right? Or they may be satisfied with their employment status and things like that. But there are a lot of people that are unhappy, but they're just not ready to ask for help. And so sometimes you have to find people that actually need the help. And those are the people sometimes that need the help the most.
That's good. And so I do want to, I know we don't have a lot of time. We're going to bring you guys back, because we do realize how important this conversation is for our community. What exactly is the Prison Reform Act? Because we heard a lot about that last year, the Prison Reform Act, you know, and immediately, I'm going to be honest, oh my God, that means that my brother can get help. There are things that, you know, we could do. So what exactly is the Prison Reform Act?
There's been a series of different changes on both the state and the federal level that have happened over the span of the last couple of years. On one hand, the sentences that have been previously handed down in reference to drug offenses, a lot of what are categorized as nonviolent offenses, the sentences were draconian. I mean, people were serving 20, 30 years. Sometimes, especially on the state level, they were serving mandatory minimums. They were serving them on the federal side as well. So a lot of the reform acts that dealt with, whether it was on the federal side or on the state side, dealt with the diminution credits that inmates are able to receive during the course of the time that they're incarcerated, which makes them eligible for parole earlier, or in some circumstances will shorten their sentence. On the federal side, it could shorten their sentence or lower their guidelines down, which would put them closer to a release. On both the state side and the federal side, it still remains a very complicated process. And it's difficult for people who've received long sentences to be released. But a lot of people have been released, both on the state and federal side, due to those changes that have occurred during the course of the last couple of years. On the state side, there's a bigger push to start using things like 8505. So there's a program, it's Health General 8505, 8507, under which if you're serving a sentence and you're eligible for parole in the state of Maryland, you can file with the court to ask to be evaluated. And if they determine that you're appropriate for either a mental health program or a drug program, or what they also call a dual diagnosis program, the state of Maryland will actually find the program for you. And the court, you can go back before the judge, and the judge can modify your sentence so that way you're able to go to the 8505 program. And to me, I think the 8505 program on the state level is one of the best programs. It starts off with addressing whatever the initial concern was, whether it's the mental health, drug treatment, or both. And then by the end of the program, they're actually working with you in terms of employment and aftercare plans, so that way you have a fallback. You know, you're not forced to have to immediately go back out and do anything. You're given the mentorship, you're given the groups, you're given all of the holistic things that are more likely to result in you having a positive outcome. So So, the expanded use of the A505, that's something that we're engaging in on a frequent basis at this point in time. The state of Maryland's gone out of its way not gone out of its way, it's done what they should have done in the first place, which is they've started taking things that didn't result in convictions off of case search so that they're not publicly available, to the general public. Because there were people that had horrible looking records on case search. And then when you look through them, all the cases were dismissed. All the charges had result in null process, but they were dragging around this 15-entry record on case search. So the state of Maryland's gone through and they've removed all of those from case search. They've removed the cases from case search public viewing of juveniles that are charged as adults, but have not had their decision as to whether they will remain charged as adults or as juveniles in addition to that. They've also expanded the use of expungements, which is an opportunity to go back and, have things that didn't result in convictions removed off your record. And so all of those changes, offer a positive benefit to redeeming yourself in society, because it's you can't even, apply for a job if you've got a long record on case search. And now it's just offered a lot of opportunities for people.
That's what that point that you said, that, that has blocked people from getting certainly a job, but housing even. Like, I can't even get a place to live. And so that is that big picture of how it all works together to kind of harm the community if it's not handled responsibly. This time has gone too fast. You guys are a wealth of information. Like Cassandra said, we have to bring you back. We hope you will be our guest again.
Yes. And I do have one final question, but I also want to go back to what you said in the beginning, Roland, how this is all divinely set up by God, how you want to now work with Will. I don't know exactly what it is that you guys are going to do together, but that mentorship program, and then Will is going to work with Ron. So all this has just been divinely put together.
Absolutely.
But do you guys exactly know how many? Because I think it was Will talked about the 90s and the 20s, about when I think it was O'Malley came through and a lot of our Black men were arrested, right? Do you guys know now how many of our Black men are incarcerated in the state of Maryland?
To be honest with you, I would have to look that data up.
Yeah.
In the unfortunate circumstances, you go to a facility and they constitute a majority of the the individuals that are incarcerated there. And it's sad, but there's a lot of people, and not only that, there's a lot of people that are pre-trial. They haven't even been convicted yet, and they're essentially serving sentences, especially with COVID.
Right.
Some individuals have been sitting for almost 2 years.
Oh my goodness.
Right. And so the facilities are so full that I hope we're not going to get cut off. When I started as an attorney, right? I started in like 2006, and we used to have these people we called boat people, because they slept in the gymnasium at Central Booking, and they slept in these things that look like boats. And for a long time, they were actually able to get rid of the boat people, right? They were able to put everybody in dorms. Well, we're back to the situation now where individuals have to sleep in the gymnasium in the boats. They literally brought back the same exact boats that they had, 14, 15, 16 years ago. So, even the pretrial population would be shocking.
There was a question asked earlier: how do we get from, hopelessness to hope? And I don't know that we had that answer today on the show, but I will say that you guys have definitely given us hope. Like, what I take away from this is that there is a hope. There's people out there that will mentor. There's people with the information. I mean, your brain, Attorney Roland, reminds me of my husband's brain. Like, you just spewing it out. You have so much to give. And there's people that need it desperately. So I just thank you for sharing that. Go ahead, Cassandra.
No, Adam seemed like he has something to say, and I want to make sure we do get that out before we leave.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to say that it's platforms like this, right? Like it's having candid conversations about what's going on, about the cash bail system, which I can say, you know, in Maryland, we have started to take a focused look on how we are detaining individuals before they've ever become, you know, a part of the criminal justice system, right? And so if we can somewhat start to highlight some of the positive things that we're doing, start to connect folks with many of the positive elements, the mentors, the alternative opportunities, the job training, because one of the things that I believe it was Ron, what he was talking about is actually providing an economic opportunity for somebody who is now transitioning back into society. So if we can start to kind of show folks that the way that you did it was only one way, there are other ways. And guess what? There are people who are trying to help you to get there. And guess what? We got to do that work, right? We have to reach out. And when that person comes, we got to connect them with these resources. And I think if we do that, just each one of us individually, collectively, we'll move the needle just slightly and start to address that issue.
Wow. Thank you so much, Adam, for that. That piece was important.
Yes, it was.
Now, I want you guys, Adam or Roland, to tell our viewers how to get in contact with you. But you will be back. But tell them how to get in contact with you.
Our website is cohenharris.com. That's COHEN Harris.com. And our phone number is 888-585-7979.
Thank you both for being a part of this discussion. Again, because this is a needed discussion, we will definitely be bringing you guys back. And we want to thank you, viewers, for listening to the testimonies about redemption, hearing real life stories. And we also want you guys to continue to follow, share, and we want to just take this time to let you know that there's hope. Placida, I do want you to read that scripture. And from that scripture, we want to close this show out and let you know that we are here. We are here to hear the cry of the land, and whatever it is that you guys want us to have a show on, please send it in.
Absolutely. So the scripture comes from Galatians 2:20-21, and this is the Message version. What actually took place is this. I tried keeping rules and working my head off to please God, and it didn't work. So I quit being a lawman so that I could be God's man. Christ's life showed me how and enabled me to do it. I identified myself completely with him. Indeed, I have been crucified with Christ. My ego is no longer central. It is no longer important that I appear righteous before you or have your good opinion. I am no longer driven to impress God. Christ lives in me. The life you see me living is not mine, but it is lived by faith in the Son of God who loved me and gave himself for me. I am not going to go back on that.
So thank you again.
We just thank you for being a part of Maintain Monday. Our viewers, we love you. We'll see you again next week. Same time, same place. God bless you.
All right. Thank you.
Take care.